Something is happening with water heaters right now, and if you haven't been pitched a pump water heater yet, you will be soon.
Energy. Let's go. Plug in eco energy. Go. Go that eco energy. You know.
ComEd is actively promoting them. Contractors are installing them. The search volume on Google this week is at an all-time high. So today, we're going to tell you exactly what they are, what they cost to run, and whether the math actually works for your house in Illinois or Indiana.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Plugged In Podcast, episode
thanks.
13. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to our podcast. We really do appreciate that.
Yeah. Water heating accounts for roughly 14 to 18% of a home energy bill. Did you know that?
I didn't before we started doing
that.
Yeah.
But it's quite a bit. And
That's
a lot of
a
people
lot.
don't realize that.
No.
A family of 4 using a standard electric resistance water heater in Illinois spends approximately $600 to $750 every single year heating water.
Wow.
And most of them have no idea how much it's really costing them.
You know, I've seen a lot of electric water heaters. I mean, they're mostly in our area is gas.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of electric water heaters. I had no idea they were that expensive to run.
Right. How much? What do we have? Do we have a gas water
We have
heater?
gas.
Okay,
Yeah, we have
that's
gas
what I
water
thought.
heater. Yeah.
Yeah, but most
So-
people have electric.
Yeah. A lot of people have electric. We've actually done a lot of heat pumps replacing electric water heaters, and I mean, I don't know why, but now I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does it work, Con?
Yeah, so a heat pump water heater pulls heat from the surrounding air, right, using a refrigerant cycle, just
Yes.
kind of like an AC unit or a refrigerator in reverse.
flow. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of making air cold, it's making water hot, and
Well, it's making the air around it cold and making the water hot, right?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
like the opposite of what your AC does in your house.
yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and just to kind of understand the process, an electric water heater just uses electric heating coils, right? That use resistive heat to heat up the water in a water heater.
Yes,
It uses a lot of electricity.
it does.
It does.
30 amps, and it's a pretty continuous draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then a gas water heater, which, like we said, a lot of people in our area have.
Right.
It burns natural gas or
Yep.
propane to heat water.
Yeah.
It's got a fast recovery time, lower operating costs than a standard electric water heater.
Yes.
But it is subject to volatile fuel prices, just like anything, honestly.
You know, the one thing that I was talking to a customer one time, and she was doing a whole home electrification, which means she was removing all of her gas appliances.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the people that I talk to that do remove their gas appliances, the common thread there is electricity doesn't blow up like gas does.
Right.
So there'll be an event on the news, or they'll see a house fire. There'll be a house fire locally that was caused by a leaky gas line or an explosion, and that really drives fear into people.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the other main point on why electricity instead of gas is carbon monoxide,
Mm-hmm.
the silent deadly killer.
Right.
And anything that burns gas emits carbon monoxide, and you run into issues with, either a severe carbon monoxide poisoning, or in a worst case scenario, a death that occurs there. Usually, people are feeling sick and not well, and that usually indicates that you need to have it tested.
Right.
But those are the two main reasons I've heard why people are transitioning from gas to electric. There's a big ComEd program right now, the whole home electrification program, where they are actively hundreds of houses a year they're converting to all electric.
Yeah.
And it's a program that's thriving. We do a lot of work in that program,
Mm-hmm.
and the people really do like it. They're installing very high efficiency equipment, and it's about the same price as running gas,
Right.
basically, maybe a little less.
Which is pretty cool, especially if you've got an older unit.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense
Okay.
because you're upgrading, right?
Yeah.
And most people have no idea what type of water heater they have, right? They know that when they take a shower, they put it to hot and it goes hot, right?
Yeah,
But walk us through how to find out what kind of water
it's
heater.
pretty simple. A gas water heater has a vent coming out of the top. That's your first indicator.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have got a like a 3-inch diameter flue pipe coming out of the top of your water heater, it's definitely gas.
Okay.
The other kind of the telltale signs are you'll either see a gas line being piped to it,
Yeah.
which usually a black pipe, or if you see an electric line running over to it and not a gas line, it's typically electric.
Okay. That
Or
makes
you can
sense.
look at the label on the side and it will say either kWh, kilowatt hours, or watts, or it'll say BTUs. If it says BTUs, you know that's a gas appliance. And if it says watts or kilowatts or that, you know it's electric.
That makes sense.
Yeah, a few different ways of checking it out. But I think the dead giveaway is the flue pipe coming out of the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because I know ours, it's like you said, a 3 or 4 inch pipe. It's a silver pipe going right out of the top, and
Yeah.
then it goes over to the side of the house where it vents out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people who have electric water heaters don't realize what the costs are. The real operating costs of running that electric water heater.
Right.
So go ahead and share with us what that is.
Yeah, so on a standard electric water heater, you're using, roughly 4,800 kilowatts of electricity a year.
Yeah,
And in dollars, that amounts to about $670 a year in
about 56
electricity.
bucks a month.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Almost $60 a month
just for
that,
hot water.
right? Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
And if you go to a heat pump and gas cost about the same amount to operate,
Yeah,
about $21 to $22 a month.
gas is a little more volatile price-wise than electricity.
Hmm.
That I've noticed. Gas has gone from like 70 or 80 cents per therm to $1.60 a therm.
Oh wow.
So, and I think the pricing that you ran here was based on $1 a therm, which is where it currently is.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're about the same to run, but if it goes up to $1.60, well then electricity wins.
Yeah. Hands down.
Yeah. So what does it cost a month to run the heat pump?
So about $21 a month for
Wow,
the
a
heat pump.
third of the cost.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you're going
Oh,
from 60 to just over 20.
okay.
It's crazy. And on an annual savings,
Yeah.
if you're going from standard electric to a heat pump, you're saving about $420 a year.
Holy cow.
I mean, that's real money.
It's not chump change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was $40 one month and that was a one-time thing, then yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's every single
Month in and
year.
month out.
And, your average water heater lasts 8 to 12 years.
So this is probably a lot of the reason why people are changing over is
Yeah.
because they're saving $400 a year for the different unit.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's pretty cool.
And then obviously we've talked about the ComEd hourly pricing before,
Mm-hmm.
and how does that weigh into this?
Yeah. So one of the cool things on these heat pumps is that they're smart, right? Just
Mhm.
like a lot of new appliances are, you have the ability to run schedules on them.
Oh,
And back in episode 9, we talked about the ComEd hourly pricing
okay.
program.
Yeah.
And you can actually program your heat pump water heater to run primarily in those hours where it's cheapest for electricity. And that can change the math
You
even
could
more.
probably have it just cycle off during the day when nobody's home.
Right.
You don't need hot water, and then have
Mhm.
it turn back on in the evening
Yeah.
when somebody's going to be around.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
It,
Makes
it,
some sense.
it can make the math work even better.
Yeah, I mean, even just as it were, without playing with the timer on it,
Right.
there's still a significant savings.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if you're trying to shave even more, that would help.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this $420 a year is assuming no hourly pricing. That's
Wow.
assuming
Okay.
standard ComEd rates.
So it's even better with the hourly
right.
pricing.
Exactly.
That's the
yeah.
icing on the cake there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so a family of 4 on a standard electric water heater is spending, 56 bucks a month, like we said, $672 every single year just
Yeah.
heating water. Switching to a heat pump can cut that to 21 bucks a month, like
Yeah.
we just said. Same hot water, same tank size, just a completely different way of getting that water hot.
So instead of a direct heating element that's relatively inefficient,
Yeah.
utilizes the air around you. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
pretty cool. And now I know we talked a little bit about the hourly pricing and how
Yeah.
it changes the math, but we've actually got some numbers on how
Oh,
it
hey,
changes the
gotta
math.
love the numbers. What do we got?
Yeah, so an annual savings you're cutting an extra $160 to $215 a year,
Okay, so your
depending.
annual energy costs at off peak are
Right around 2 to 5 cents, because it is
okay,
that hourly price. It fluctuates a little
right?
bit, but from the average off peak, you're 2 to 5 cents.
And that'll cost you by 35 to 90 bucks a year
Mm-hmm.
to run it off peak only.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Which is
super cheap.
crazy. So
Yeah,
a 10-year savings versus a standard electric then
right.
moves to in between 5,800 and 6,300
On a 10-year
on a
savings.
10-year savings.
And gas, you can't run a timer on, right?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
you just have to let it heat up, and it's a pretty dumb machine
Right.
where it heats up and then it just keeps the water at the right temperature
Yeah.
all 24/7,
Yep.
basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So yeah, that hourly pricing layout to run the hot water heater for a whole year on basically what it would cost to run it for a month and a half or 2 months is pretty significant.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
significant. Um, you know, the
10-year cost to ownership, I think let's look at. I think the numbers really, you look at $400 a year and it's not a huge amount of money, but let's look at the lifespan of the equipment
yeah.
because that really tells the true story. Average lifespan of a water heater is about 10 years.
Yeah. I think 8 to 12 was the number.
Yeah,
Put it in the middle,
be
10
fair,
years,
10
and that
years.
that's what we used for all these calculations. So on the heat pump, right?
Yeah.
Your 10-year cost of ownership is between 3,800 and 4,100.
Okay.
And that it sounds like a lot of money
Yeah.
until you realize what you're currently spending on a standard electric, and that's between $7,400 and $7,500.
Okay, that's quite a bit of
That
difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're potentially cutting it in half,
Wow.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And gas is kind of right next to the heat pump at 35 to 3,700.
It's about the same
Yeah,
price. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So gas and heat pump, I think, are the clear winners here with
About the
standard
10, yeah, for the
electric.
10-year ownership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Standard electric lagging quite far behind the
Okay.
competition.
Yeah.
Gas pump and water heaters end up at nearly the same 10-year TCO, total
Right.
cost of ownership in Illinois, 35 to 4,100, and
Okay.
a standard electric is the clear loser at 7,400 plus.
That's a big difference there. It's almost
That's
half.
huge.
Yeah.
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 And that's what, again, like, people don't realize that. They
Yeah.
turn the shower on and boom, it's hot.
Yeah.
No idea what it's actually costing them because they know the unit was 500-700 bucks, when they bought it,
Yeah.
and they don't know what it's actually costing them every month.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
I think the like we talked about the therms, right now they're about $1 a therm, and if that spikes up, that might drive some natural gas people over to electric as
Oh yeah.
well.
Well, that's like what we're seeing on the EV side, right?
Right.
With
Yeah.
electric vehicles. The interest in electric vehicles right now is 28% higher than the rest of the year. And
Interesting.
that's because gas prices are
Oh, yeah.
extremely high.
Yeah, right
They're
now they're high.
like $5 a gallon. It's absolutely insane. And the same thing happens with gas
Yeah.
when it goes high because of events that are honestly outside of everybody's control.
Yeah.
It causes you
They
to
tend
actually
to
look at
spike.
that stuff a little bit more. Yeah.
Is there any difference between the Illinois and Indiana gas prices, natural gas prices?
Yeah, and I mean, not much. They
Okay.
tend to be about the
They're pretty
same.
similar.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much the same. No huge difference.
Okay.
There is a difference between Illinois and Indiana electricity prices,
Oh
though,
yeah, because of the
because of
hourly.
the hourly pricing.
Yeah.
So ComEd gives you a clear leg up on Indiana for electricity prices
Yeah.
because you don't have access to an hourly
But
plan.
one of the main complaints I hear from everybody in Indiana is how much they really can't stand NIPSCO.
That's true.
I mean, to be fair, I mean it's a utility and nobody loves utilities,
Yep.
but when you don't have them, you'll sure like them.
Oh yeah.
But I
Yeah.
hear a lot of complaints about NIPSCO, and not to say that it's not a good program, it's not well run. They just don't have the same amount of options that Illinois does. And I hear a lot of complaints about the price of the gas and the price of electric. And this is
Yeah.
just from homeowners, not necessarily from, the utility side of it. And I'm sure there's a good reason why. But
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they're a company just like any other. They're motivated by profit,
sure.
and they have to make the best decision for
Yeah, and they're
that.
also, I'm sure they're governed by like in Illinois, there's a citizens utility board which kind of has some I guess some influence in utility pricing, but at the end of the day, it's costs what it costs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the installation is going to be quite different on the heat pump versus the whole just electric.
Right.
And that has to do with the design of the heat pump. And you know how we talked about it works like a reverse air conditioner?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because of that, the the square footage that you need for the heat pump water heater is significantly larger than
Mm,
the old water heater. You
right.
can't put a heat pump water heater in a utility closet. It will not function properly.
So, how much space do I actually need?
They recommend between 700 and 1,000 square feet of
Okay.
space for installation. And if you think about how this works and you think about your like your condensing unit on your air conditioner, how it's outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it has an air exchange,
Okay.
and that's how it cools your inside air. It pulls heat from the inside and dispels it outside. Even though it's hotter outside than it is inside, it's still able to effectively remove heat. And on the in the flip side, the way the water heater works is it's like that outdoor unit on your air conditioner that heats the water side of
Mm,
it. So it cools the air around it. It dehumidifies and cools the air around it.
okay.
So you need a lot more space. You need a lot more cubic feet of air so that it can heat. It can properly cool the air around, driving heat into the heat pump.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if it's cooling the air around it, if I'm in the winter, I don't want my water heater to be cooling down my house. So,
No,
how does it actually work that way?
right. It doesn't cool it like super cool, like you're gonna freeze in there.
Right.
The temperature difference isn't that great, because of how because of how it functions. So I would venture to say that like between you don't want it cooling off your already cool basement air, but you're not really going to notice a huge thermal difference in the air around it
Okay.
because it's got enough volume to dissipate it.
Okay.
And then if you think about it, most water heaters are in the basement,
Mm-hmm.
and the basement has a constant temperature. When you're doing a heat load calculation, you don't even calculate the basement in your heat load calculation
Really?
because the ground stays a pretty consistent, temperature year round.
Okay.
So that ground will deliver heat into the house or cool into the house just by the nature of, how ground works, It's cooler underground, maintains a pretty constant temperature year round. So while you'll get a little bit of a cooling effect, it's not that noticeable, and it shouldn't cause like you're not walking into a refrigerator down there. It
Right.
doesn't have that type of BTU rating where it could cool that much space.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And almost every heat pump water heater installation requires a new circuit.
Okay.
240, 30 amp circuit for that. Now, unlike the electric water heater, which draws 30 amps constantly, this has a much lower draw on the runtime, but it uses a 30 amp breaker because when that compressor starts up, it does have a higher amp draw.
Got it.
So while it's running, it may only draw 5 or 6 or 7 amps, but during startup, that's why you have to have the 30 amp breaker. Now, on a regular water heater that draws 30 amps continuously, that's where your big power savings comes into play. So we do a panel assessment first when we walk through the house. We do a load calculation because oftentimes when somebody's adding in a heat pump water heater, they're also adding in a heat pump for their heating as well.
Right.
So you're adding quite a bit of electrical load if you're removing gas appliances.
Right.
You've got a stove, which is a significant heat load. Now there's induction stoves as well that help with that.
Okay.
It's a more efficient way of heating as well,
Yeah.
heating your food. But there's definitely we have to do load calculation on the property to make sure that it can handle it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it involves a service upgrade. Typically not though. And a lot of the heat pump water heaters are getting installed in place of an electric water heater.
Right.
So you're not you're actually your overall demand is going to go down.
Interesting.
Yeah. The problem comes into a relocation
Hmm.
because oftentimes they're in a utility closet or they're somewhere where they don't have space to breathe, and they have to be relocated, so a new circuit is pulled from the panel to the new location where it needs to go.
Got it.
If you don't have the space, the 700 to 1,000 square feet, they're not going to run efficiently,
Okay.
and they're going to cause problems. And inside those heat pump water heaters, there's also a resistive heating element as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when the ambient temperature gets below 40 degrees, that resistive heating element will kick in, and that'll still draw that 30 amps continuously.
Ah,
It's kind of got a
right, right.
backup heater in there as well.
That
I've
makes
seen a lot of
sense.
45 kW heating elements that are part of those setups.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like a more efficient way to heat the water if you have enough time.
Got
And
it.
we'll get into that a little bit later. So location, you buy the heat pump water heater, you go to put it in your closet, you notice it's not working. It's because it needs room to breathe. So make sure we hit those square footage requirements that the manufacturers recommend so that it doesn't affect the performance of it. Because the whole reason why you bought it is so you can save money, and performance is 100% of it.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And on the electrical side, it's no different than most electrical upgrades. Be it a hot tub, a pool, an
Yeah.
EV charger.
Do a
You
load
start with
calculation.
a panel assessment and load calculation.
What's surprising to me is how many electricians don't do load calculations when they're
Mm-hmm.
adding significant appliances.
Yeah.
We see it all the time.
Yeah.
We want to add a hot tub. Okay, well, let me do a load calculation. Oh, you're the only electrician who said they need to do a load calculation. Well, it's because we want you to have enough power to run your hot tub,
Yeah.
or an EV charger. You just had one, was it today or yesterday, where it was a panel that was not. They added in an EV charger, and they
Oh
never
yeah.
sized up the panel.
Yeah. So we're doing some other electrical work at a house in Indiana,
Uh-huh.
and we're trying to figure out if they have the capacity to install that. And I do the load calculation, and normally when you do a load calculation on a 100 amp panel, it comes out to 70 amps, 60 amps,
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And when I did this load calculation with the EV charger, the way it's already set out,
Yeah.
we're sitting at 125 amps. And
So someone installed an EV charger
yeah.
without doing a load calculation. Was there a load shedding device, please?
No, there was no load
nothing.
shedding device.
Okay.
And, we're trying to figure out, it's been installed for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Why has this not been an issue yet?
It
And,
oftentimes won't.
well, the other thing there is they haven't turned on their AC yet, right? They haven't
Aha.
turned on their number 2 electrical load in the house
Yeah.
since they had that EV charger
Okay.
installed. So, maybe they'll get lucky and it won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Or maybe as soon as they turn that AC unit on, they're going to have an issue.
Because they have a 48 amp charger, right, on a
Mhm.
60 amp breaker.
With a big truck. They have the Sierra EV.
Yeah.
So that's going to be charging, pretty much all night.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a very
It's going
constant
to be a
load
big
on that
problem.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they haven't had the problem yet, they definitely will when the air conditioner comes into play.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially because I believe they were also talking about doing heat pump, water heater,
Right.
and furnace. So
Are they all electric now? Or do they
no
have gas appliances
gas
now?
appliances
Okay.
for everything but the oven. The
Okay.
oven was the other electric appliance.
There's an electric oven?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. We'll be back over there to upgrade to 200 amps in no time.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
soon as it hits 80 degrees outside,
Yep.
and they try and kick on that air conditioner.
Or a load shedding device.
You know what the
have that.
problem though is? The truck is going to be charging overnight, and then they're going to be in the house for dinner, and the AC is going to kick on.
Yep.
They're cooking dinner. They've got the EV charger. The AC kicks on. It's going to trip their main breaker.
Exactly.
100% guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Especially being that far over on a load calculation.
how-
It's 25%.
How old is the panel?
The panel isn't super old.
Okay.
It's a modern panel. It's a square D QO panel.
Okay.
Which aren't known for failures, and
Right.
there wasn't any other big issues with the panel. So I'm confident that that main breaker will do its job and
Yeah.
trip when it needs to.
It should.
But you're still out of power in that whole house once that thing trips.
Okay.
Yeah. What's next?
I think budget. Go back up. Budget for this. a realistic budget for electrical, adding an electric circuit for a water heater?
Yeah, I mean, usually it's in between $400 and $700, depending on the location,
Mm-hmm.
right? If we've got a far run that's going through a finished basement or whatever the case may be, then it's going to be a little more expensive. But it's a 240-volt 30 amp circuit. You want to make sure that it's done right because it's a high draw appliance that makes a real difference on your electrical
Mm-hmm.
system. Yeah. And the unit cost is slightly higher
They're more
than.
expensive.
Hmm.
They're definitely more expensive. There's a
Yeah,
lot more pieces on there.
yeah,
There's a lot more parts. There's a compressor, a coil. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, more expensive than a standard electric water heater, but about the same price, maybe a little bit more than a gas water heater. And the total cost of ownership is the really important number
Yeah.
because that electric water heater is cheaper on day one, but you look 4 years down the line and you're like, oh, geez, I just paid $1,000 more for heating my water than I could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Yep.
All right. Have you ever had to tell somebody that this thing won't work in their space? What do you do?
We've had this conversation because we have a plumber that we work with who will install the heat pump water heaters, but he's very, you know, I think it's fair to say that you need to understand how a heat pump water heater works, and you also need to understand the shortcomings that may happen with a
Mm-hmm.
heat pump water heater because it there's more to it than a utility savings. If you have a house with 4 people in it, your back-to-back showers, the 50-gallon option may not be enough hot water for you because the recovery time on a heat pump water heater is significantly higher than either regular electric or a gas water heater.
Okay.
There are certain instances where this is just not a good idea.
Right.
Um, if you a lot of it has to do with the number of people in your household. You may want to upsize that water heater from a 50-gallon to a 65 or an 80-gallon water heater, heat pump water heater,
Right.
so you have more water in reserve.
Right.
And that can become a big that's where I've seen the most amount of confusion come in, where people don't allow the water heater to recover in enough time. So you do sacrifice recovery rate with the heat pump water heater. Um, and that's the one downside, and that's where we've seen the most complaint from people on that is, well, the recovery rate isn't very good, or it takes so long to heat up the first time, which it's true, it does take significantly longer. However, you're not running that heating element at full tilt every single time your water needs to bump up a few degrees.
Right.
You've got a much more controlled way of doing it. The other issue that I think people maybe don't think about or haven't thought it quite through is it makes noise.
Yeah.
It's not quiet. You know, your water heater. I've never heard. Well, I can hear my water heater when the fan kicks on
Mm-hmm.
because we've got a high efficiency water heater with a draft inducer fan on it. So yeah, that's louder than the heat pump water heater would be. But if you're used to an electric water heater that literally makes no noise, you're going to be a little bit surprised because these are like 50 to 55 um,
Decibels.
decibels.
Yep.
Yeah. And that actually is loud enough to be annoying,
Okay.
just to be fair.
So if the water heater, the heat pump water heater is right below my bedroom,
Yeah, you'll
that's
hear it.
okay.
Yeah, you'll
Might get
definitely hear
annoying.
it.
Got it.
Will it be a constant annoyance? You'll probably get used to it, just
Yeah.
like anything else.
It's
I mean, we
like
live next to a train track.
yep.
I'm used to trains now. I don't even hear them,
No,
Yeah.
never wakes me up anymore.
No, and if you think about a train, it makes a whole lot more noise than a water heater ever will.
Yep.
The other thing about placement on those water heaters in the basement, great place to keep them. Like I said, that temperature in the ground is about 55 degrees year round. That's a perfect condition for optimal efficiency on that heat pump water heater.
Okay.
So if you're looking for like the best case scenario, in your basement 100%. And if it's already in the basement, your basement's unfinished or it's wide open, that's even better case scenario because you've got 700 to up to 1,000 square feet of open space that water heater can breathe and do its job very well. And you'll experience the highest efficiency rating at that point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If you have it, if you're trying to use it in a garage, though, that's a no-no, because of the drastic temperature differences that occur. Unless it's heated in the winter, around 40 degrees, it goes down to almost no efficiency.
Got it.
So it'll just kick on that backup heating resistant element, and you won't see any of that positive, cost savings in any time it's below 40 degrees,
That
which
makes
happens
sense.
in our climate quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, Illinois has crazy swings. I mean, in the winter, the garage is, 20 degrees out would be
Yeah,
realistic for some really cold spells.
yeah,
And in those cases, it's going to make no sense to have that.
yeah. So basement is really the ideal place for it. If it's in an outdoor room, and this is another thing, I've seen people want to place them in like an outdoor enclosure, and
Mm,
that's just a bad idea.
yeah.
You just, first of all, you don't have the square footage that you need, and then on top of that, you're really affected by seasonal changes in temperature.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So it cools down, it dehumidifies. So in the summer, that's a plus,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's pulling water. Those water heaters also have a drain. A lot of
Really?
people don't realize that you need to run that to a floor drain. And if you don't have a floor drain, you run it to a condensate pump,
Mm,
and the condensate pump will pump it over to a floor drain.
okay.
That's one thing that when we first started installing them, we had to add in a circuit for a condensate pump on a lot of properties, and everybody was confused. Why do we have to have why do we have to have another circuit there? We fought the program quite a bit with it
Mm,
because there's nowhere to plug in a condensate pump near a water heater. Often it's in a utility area, or it's in an unfinished basement.
right.
There's not an outlet anywhere nearby.
Yeah.
So I remember the first couple, the plumber just plugged in an extension cord, to allow the thing to run while we ran a separate circuit. We had to get approved for it. But yeah, you need a 120 volt single pole, or sorry, not single pole, but 120 volt circuit over there to run a condensate pump in order to pump the condensate, because it's pulling water out of the air.
Right.
It's got to drain somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's either going to go all over the floor. If you have a floor drain close by, they can pipe it over to there. Otherwise, you got to pump it out.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And like I said, recovery time is an issue.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that we've seen people complain about a lot. And then another, I guess, negative, that federal tax credit, that we used to be able to get a $2,000 federal tax credit for a heat pump, either a water heater or a heat pump AC
Mm,
furnace, and that expired at the end of 2025. So that's no
got it.
longer available. And we're really like still figuring out the land of rebates and tax credits.
Yeah.
I don't know of any active rebate. ComEd has done rebates in the past with
Yeah.
heat pump water heaters. They've also done some. I believe they still have rebates available for heat pump heaters, furnaces, and that is supply side. So your installer will get a discount on the equipment that
Mm,
comes as an instant discount from ComEd.
got it.
So the homeowner won't have to apply for any rebate. The equipment is already delivered at whatever that, I think it's $1,400 now or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
So not nothing for sure.
it's not nothing, yeah, but the cost of the equipment is significant. So, if you're looking to add in a heat pump, and depending on what efficiency rating you're looking for, the higher the efficiency, obviously, the more expensive the equipment.
Yeah.
And I know that you get up into the 15 SEER equipment, and your just raw equipment costs are somewhere 10 to 15,000, depending on what size equipment is going in and what you're replacing.
So it's substantial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that 1,400 is 10%, maybe a
Okay.
little more, maybe a little less of the overall project.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you combine, like you said, that heat pump water heater, the ComEd hourly pricing, I mean, it can make sense in a lot of applications.
Yeah.
And I want to say we probably put in maybe 100 a year,
Okay.
somewhere around there, maybe
Yeah.
100 or a little more, give or take. We're
Okay.
doing them we do a lot in Indiana as well as Illinois.
Yeah.
And so there is a compelling reason to do it, and the utilities are really pushing for them.
Yeah.
And that it's good that they are, because they are significantly more efficient, as we saw by the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you compare it with that ComEd hourly pricing,
yeah.
make it run at the best time of day, then it can
And
get
like you
really
said,
good.
do some programming on it.
Yeah,
Don't have your water being heated when you're not going to need it.
right.
Like
It
that water heater will hold water at temperature for a very long time.
yeah,
So if you don't need to run it for 9 hours a day, then save some energy and save some money.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, like a no-brainer scenario would be if you have an EV charging overnight on ComEd hourly pricing,
yeah,
you now have like three high draw appliances. You've got your EV charger,
yeah,
your AC, and your electric water heater that are all running specifically at night
yeah,
with the hourly pricing. I mean,
yeah.
it can be very compelling.
Do you think it would be a compelling reason to switch to hourly pricing just because of the water heater?
I mean, honestly, I would go back and watch our episode 9
Yeah,
because there are a lot of intricacies
yeah,
that can make it a great program for you,
yeah,
or you could switch and absolutely hate it.
yeah,
Some of those no-brainers are if you work nights
yeah.
and you're not going to be able to charge your EV at night, then it is going to
Doesn't
make
make a
no
lot of
sense.
sense. Yeah.
But if you're in, which a lot of people are in scenarios where it does make sense,
Hmm.
if you have that EV charger and electric water heater
Yeah.
and you work days and are able to charge those things at night, then I think it's a no-brainer.
Yep. Caveat or a little disclaimer here: we do not install water heaters.
Yeah.
We run power to water heaters, but we do not install the water heater. But we have a lot of friends who do. So if you're interested in, what it would cost to put a heat pump water heater in, you can get a hold of us.
Yeah.
Find us on the website www.ecoenergy, the numerical number 1.com, ecoenergy1.com, or give us a call
708-872-8404.
and talk to Dane. He'll be glad to steer you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.